My name is Ray Angry. I'm a pianist, composer, musician, visionary, and a lover of music and life. And I'm really excited to be here at the Jazzaar Festival here in Switzerland. Oh my God, it's amazing here. My approach to learning new music um, is very simple. I try to be very open, and also I try to um, discover new things about myself in the music that I'm creating or trying to learn, because I believe that music is something that should be a thing that comes from your soul. So I try to, embody my personality in the things that I'm trying to learn. And so for anyone who wants to learn music, I would say you would have to really know who you are, you know what I mean? So that as an individual, you have something to say when you're learning the new music, and therefore your own stamp is put on that music that you're trying to learn. One experience that I had that was very difficult that really helped me to grow was I received a commission about um, in 2020, no, 2021. I received a commission. No, it's 2020, right during the pandemic. And the commission was for me to write a symphony, which I had never done before, but I've always wanted to do it. And so, if you could imagine what was going through my mind when when I got the commission and I had to write a symphony, and so it was very hard, but I took the challenge very seriously and I worked my ass off, and my symphony premiered last year in November. So it was probably the most difficult challenge I've ever had in my life, but it was really amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Black Ophelia.
Huh?
Black
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 Athena Power.
Athena.
Black
Athena.
Athena Power. Yeah.
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 Man, I was mad that it was in Massachusetts because I was stuck. Is it coming to New York?
I'm working on it being in New York. I'm working on doing a premiere in New York. But yeah, that was quite a challenge. But the next iteration of this piece will be in New York, and I want to have visuals added to it as well as a dance element. So Camille Brown has been gracious enough to, Camille Brown. She did
Not personally.
she did Terrence Blanchard's Champion. She's done a bunch of stuff on Broadway. She's an incredible choreographer and director. So she loves my piece and wants to help me, you know, add a dance element to it. Yeah. I think the most important thing for anyone that wants to work in the music industry is to develop relationships. So being a person who is selfless and also a team player, you know what I mean? So when I'm hiring someone, I look for someone that can, number one, do the job, but just nice to be around. You know what I mean? So I think that's the most important thing is to just be cool and just have fun and not make it a thing where, your ego is, just kills you from working, And I think that's the a downfall that people don't really realize when they're trying to become a musician. You always try to think you're the baddest cat, and it's like, come on, man. It's like, relax. So yeah, I think it's important to be a nice person and also to just, you know, to be really great at what you do and also being a great listener. So that's one thing that I look for when I'm hiring someone that can really listen and that, it just adds to the vibe. And as far as collaboration goes, I love collaborating because at this point in my life, I feel that relationships are so important. That's the cornerstone of being a human being. And so collaborating and sharing ideas is really important to me as an artist because I feel that you can break new ground by extending a hand across the aisle, you know, and also sharing what you know, because when you share what your experiences with someone, then you're also able to learn from them as well. You know, for example, my first record was a very collaborative effort. You know, I was working with Eric Harlan, Derek Hodge, Ambrose, Myron Walden, Kendra Foster, and these guys are my friends. But you know, even though I wrote the music, it's still a collaboration because we're all sharing ideas together. You know, and yeah, I love collaborating. Bjork, are you listening? I want to collaborate with you. The biggest no-no for me is what I've discovered is when you're really talented, you know, and you're sort of like a big fish in a small pond. I think the biggest no-no is to think that you're a person who is untouchable. You're like, you know, no one can outshine you. That is the biggest no-no because you know recently, anyway, I'm not going to say anything, but you know, I have a friend who's an incredible drummer, very humble, killing, and now he's doing so many cool gigs, you know, and I think he's able to do that because number one, he's amazing, but he's great to be around. He's cool, you know, and also I think you know, shedding and practicing, you know what I mean? And, you know, to when I say shed and practicing, that means, you know, so at some point you get really good and you stop practicing, you know, and you stop working, you know, on your craft, or you feel like you sort of peak, you know. And I think the biggest no-no is to think, you know, you've arrived at a level where you don't need to grow. So I think you know, it's important to to stay a student in the game, you know, and also health is wealth. You know what I mean? And you know, I think that's very important for cats to, you know, think about their health and how they, you know, how they move their body and how they, you know, sort of have, you know, I'll use spirituality, but just some sort of you know, some sort of spiritual practice where you're able to go within and sort of, you know, recalibrate your system. Because at some point, you know, it's very stressful being a musician or just being a creative being, you know, and you need a point in your life where you sort of, you know, you just quiet your mind and meditate, or whether it's meditation, working out, doing yoga. I think the biggest no-no is to not take care of yourself. In terms of being diverse, one of the early lessons that I received as a young kid was my parents exposed me to classical music, but I also grew up in a church. So I had this sort of these worlds that I was experiencing. And then I got turned on to jazz. So as a kid, I was exposed to all these different styles of music. And and then when I would hang out with my family members or my friends, then I would get exposed to R&B. So, and I wasn't allowed to listen to R&B as a kid, you know, because my parents were very religious. And but I had a deep love. I remember the first time I heard Stevie Wonder, you know, and so I, as a kid, you can imagine I have all these different sounds permeating in my mind. So when I went to college, you know, I was a classical major, and for some reason, you know, I've always been into music. Period. I just saw music as one organism, you know, I never thought of music as, you know, this genre or that genre. I just see it as one thing, you know. And of course, each each style of music that you experience has its own language. So music is a universal language. So for me, I think it's important to, number one, to always stay open, to be a student, and to also let yourself experience all that the world has to offer, you know? And so I never wanted to just do just jazz or just R&B or just hip hop. I feel like, you know, for me, living in New York, if I'm doing a jazz gig, and that's cool, and then maybe I might have a month where there are no jazz gigs, but I might have an R&B gig, you know, or I might have a classical gig. So I'm always working in different genres. So I just think it's important to be a diverse artist, you know, because that's when you discover new sounds and new ways to think about music. Producer Mondays is my favorite event that I've ever created. It's a safe space for artists to express themselves, to create new collaborations, to share ideas, to promote their artistry. And it's not just one particular style, and it's not just one medium. It's poetry, it's dance, it's it's everything I love about the arts. And one thing that I've learned as a result of curating this night, you know, is that collaboration and relationships are so important, you know, and it's also important to always be in the moment, you know, and creating a space where everyone is starting with a clean slate, you know, and it's almost like I would liken it unto basketball. It's like, you know, when you're on the NBA, can you imagine Jordan, Scottie Pippen, you know, LeBron, Sean Curry being on the same team? To me, that's Producer Mondays. It's, you know, cats sharing ideas, passing the ball, you know what I mean? Not hogging the ball, you know what I mean? Because, and also, you know, a lot of times as a working musician, no matter where you are in the world, a lot of times you don't have the opportunity to express yourself in a way that allows you to sort of be your own star. Either, you know, playing someone else's music, you know, it's a gig, you know, and rarely do you have an opportunity unless you're in a studio and you know, you're working with an artist, and then you can share, you know, say, well, here's how I feel about this particular song, and you can write. And so Producer Mondays is an opportunity for people to make records together, make history together. And you don't always get that opportunity. And the band that I have is just, it's just incredible to see how the band started with just myself and Stro Elliott. I didn't advertise, you know, I'm looking for a drummer, looking for a keyboardist. I didn't do any of that. Everyone came. They came to the night, and some people just kept coming, and they became a part of the band. My man, Jeff Andy, who's an incredible artist. You know, when he first moved to New York, you know, he was playing on the subway, you know, and then, you know, then he's working with me, and then he ended up working with Kanye West, and now he's working with Lauryn Hill. And, you know, then I have Camilla, who's an incredible artist in her own right, who just came, and I didn't realize that when she was coming to Producer Mondays, she just arrived in New York and was working she had an office job where she had to be to work at 7 a.m. And Producer Mondays gave her life. And that's the other thing that, you know, people often say that Producer Mondays is something that helped them save their life. There's one story that Camilla told me that I found out later on where she had an office job, and she would come to Producer Mondays religiously because that was her outlet. She had a security guard that worked in her building who was going to commit suicide. And he didn't know that she sang. And somehow he ended up at Producer Mondays and saw her on stage. And that experience made him not want to kill himself. Just, you know what I mean? And then, those kinds of stories. And also, having people like Tiffany Haddish come through, who I didn't even know she sang or did anything involved with music. And she comes through and she, she did a great job. I didn't know, I was nervous. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be bad. And she killed it. And Common was so gracious to offer his talents to the event as well. And, and then my drummer, Anwar, now he's working with Marcus Miller, played with, Joey DeFrancesco, and then Lex, my bass player, who's, I like to call him Tony Starks, because he's such a brilliant cat. He can take apart a synthesizer and put it back together again. He's like brilliant, So these are the people that just kept coming, and then they became a part of the band. Everything happened organically. And that's why I don't call it a jam session, because I feel like jam sessions has nothing to do with being present. It's jamming, you know what I mean? And you're not really connecting. Everyone is like sort of getting their rocks off. I like to call Producer Mondays a musical experience or a recording session, because to me, it's like being in the studio with people that you really want to make music with, and the audience gets to be in on the session. That's the way that's the way I look at Producer Mondays. It's like a live studio session, and the audience is a part of the experience of experiencing experiencing songs being created in the moment. You don't really get that, because everyone is always, you got the Voice, you have American Idol, everyone's, producing songs that have already been written. So you don't really have an authentic experience, you know what I mean? Where you really get to know the artist, and for me, artistry is about being vulnerable, but also being present, and listening, so.